Hi, how are you? I hope you're doing fine. Welcome to this video of which we are going to do a deep dive analysis of the poem of development written by Kundi Faraja. If you would like the video of the very same kind analysis of this poem which is done in Swahili language, you can go down to the description and click the link that I've put there. It shall take you directly to the video which we have done the analysis in very simple and understandable Swahili language. But for this video we are going to deal with this poem in English language. Sorry for the very poor quality of my video. This is because I don't have such qualitative maybe tools which could help me to make some more qualitative videos. And so as long as the issue is to deliver the content to the majority, that's what I'm caring about. And don't forget to subscribe maybe and to like, and thanks for those who have subscribed and liked because that's the only way you can show support to what we are doing. On the analysis of this poem, we shall go as follows. Starting by the very first stanza of the poem, you can see the persona says, "A man of the people enters his office to sit on the throne of party and state, his stick of power across the table." So you can see a man of the people who is being regarded as a king, but we can be sure that he is a political leader just because we have been told on the fourth stanza that he sits on the throne on the throne of party and state. That means no king is sitting on the seat or chair of a political party. So we learn that this body is a political leader, but as he acts majestically, that's why he's being treated as a king, because nowadays leaders, much of them maybe sees themselves of high privileged class. You see, they don't take, or maybe they don't consider themselves as just representatives of the majority. They classify themselves as kings and queens. So that's what has been done in the first stanza. In the second stanza, you can see the persona says he looks into the files to see the demands of millions of people majestically. You see, he just looks, what do these people need? You see, and goes on the fourth stanza. On the fourth stanza, the persona says, who for years since Uhuru have just managed to survive. You can see these people have just survived, and they are not actually living. They are just surviving on such hard and miserable conditions of their particular life in the particular referred country. You can see in this very second stanza, the persona continues to say, they ring out one message. They just have one request, all of them. And they are saying that, man of the people, you have always been telling us what we need. Health centers, more schools, clean water, better transport facilities, better living conditions. So you can see these people have been promised with good social services, but this man of the people, since has entered into his office, which is of course a public office but treated as his, he had never tried to deliver the promised things to the majority. So the third stanza continues, do you plead incapable to bring about development, you man of the people? Do you plead incapable that you cannot now bring the things which you have promised? So the persona continues to ask the man of the people, I declare running better than walking for a young and poor country. So the persona sees like it is better if they would be running rather than walking for a young and poor country like his. And the persona continues, I plead fighting under development tougher than fighting a wounded buffalo with a pocket knife. Just imagine a pocket knife fighting with a wounded buffalo, already furious. already being triggered to act in such harsh manner, you see, and you want to kill the buffalo with a pocket knife. That's very hard, you see. But the persona suppose that it is harder to fight under development rather than fighting a wounded buffalo with a pocket knife, something which is very dangerous, you see. So it is very dangerous to fight under development than to fight a wounded buffalo. You continue in the next stanza. The persona says, I plead under development is stronger than blows of the sea when the hurricane is at its height. So you can see the persona continues to declare that he declares under development is such stronger than the blows of the sea when there is a something like tsunami. The hurricane is when the wind is moving and those blows of the sea are coming with wind and very powerful to take even the buildings which are at the coast, taking them into the water. You can see. So the persona plead that under development is stronger than the blows of the hurricane of the sea. And he continue, I plead fighting under development tougher than combating colonialism. So the war against colonialism is simpler when compared to the war against under development, to the views of the persona. And he continues to say, I see that it's more difficult to maintain peace than to stop a coup d'etat. So here, the persona indirectly supports revolution against this man of the people who is irresponsible and maybe who occupies the office as it is his, and he ignores the people. So you can see the persona says it is more difficult to maintain peace than to stop a coup d'etat. And it's like just as a warning to a man of the people, like, if you will not be able to control peace, my friend, I think it is hard to control peace to you than to stop a coup d'etat. You won't be able to stop a coup d'etat. And to the next stanza, the persona says, I plead the cry of the nation, more painful than the yell of a woman as her husband dies of sickness. You can see a woman, when her husband is dying, she cries like a very painful cry, like, oh my God, help me! Ah! So the pain which a woman may be passing through during that period when her husband is dying, it is not, or maybe we can say it is lower to the pain of the cry of the nation. And the persona continues, this cry of the nation, it's more painful than the screams of a man dying in agony in the coils of the greater python found in the forest, in the African forest. Like when someone is being coiled with a python, you see, the python cannot eat you unless it coil you first. Maybe it breaks your bones first so that you can be swallowed easily. So it seems like there you cry with agony, with no help, with no hope, crying and wondering, wow, and this snake is now eating me. Hi, you see, you cry with agony, with hope for no help. That's cry of a man coiled with a python has no such pain as the pain of the cry of the nation. And the persona continues, how is development to be brought, brother, when the people to whom we have entrusted the power are corrupt? And the persona is asking, how can we achieve development while those people who we have entrusted with the power are corrupt, are taking corruption? And he continues to the next stanza saying, I plead the stomachs of the privileged few greater than the Rift Valley. The Rift Valley is very big, my friend. It is occupying more than several nations. You see, it is cross-cutting. In the Rift Valley, you can find some very land features and water bodies in the Rift Valley. It's very big, but he sees like their stomach, those privileged leaders, is very big than the Rift Valley. They cannot be satisfied with a normal share, like we shall share the national cake together. But these few minority, our leaders, have such big stomachs that like they can never be satisfied with equal shares with their citizens or fellow countrymen. And the persona continues by saying, I plead thirst of the minority, greater than that of Sahara. No rains can quench it. So think of a desert, Saharan desert, the very big desert, one among the biggest in the world. And as there is no rain which can quench its thirst, so he sees like the minority are thirsty than the Saharan desert, that their thirst, they cannot be quenched anyhow. And he continues to the next stanza by saying, I reckon the minority more sensitive to egoism is selfishness, than to national development. Nothing that is not theirs is of any interest. So I think the minority are more sensitive to selfish or to things of themselves, of theirs, than to the national development. So our leaders think most of themselves than the national development. And he continues saying like nothing that is not theirs is of any interest. So these health centers, as they are not theirs, they have no interest in them. Since people are dying of hunger, are the children dying, they are not theirs, then that's none of their business. It's not of their interest. So it continues to the next stanza saying, their response to egoism is faster than camera film to light. So like when they see something which could profit them, they act very quick, more than a camera when you light it on, like, hey, start to shoot. You see, the camera is slower to our leaders when it comes to their personal interests, but as slow as tropicism to nation building. When you say, hey, we have poor infrastructures and we would maybe need them to be fixed, they act slowly, just like movement of plants toward light, and maybe to when avoiding some obstacles. You see, a tree can take 5 years to move out of some certain object maybe. So you see, that is tropicism, movement of plants. So they are slower than the movement of plants when it comes to nation building agendas. And you can see these guys to the last stanza, the citizen says, the majority plead exploited, cheated, disregarded. But brother, how is development to come? It's just like he is posing a question to a man of the people, like, how will we attain development? So the poem ends up there, and maybe we shall take a chance to answer some number of guiding questions. Guiding questions here might go as follows, and don't forget to subscribe, please. The first guiding question is what is the poem about? Very simple. You can see, if you want to know what's the poem about, you can look on the first stanza mostly, and second maybe, or third, and you can see those first stanzas, what are they speaking about. And you can see, as you take a look on those first stanzas of the poem, you can see like the poem is about development in developing countries. The poet argues that whenever there is selfishness, whenever there is corruption, whenever there is exploitation, whenever there is oppression, there will be no development, as political leaders become concerned much on their personal agendas, personal development, personal enrichment than national building. The poem is about development in developing countries, how it is hard to achieve development in developing countries. And the other guiding question, it might be, is the persona happy in this poem? And why? If he's happy, why? If he's not happy, why? You see? So you can see in this poem, as you read it, you can see the persona is unhappy. He is complaining. And why is he unhappy? Because he is complaining about the unfair condition within the country. He is complaining about the irresponsibility, corruption, nature, egoism of the political leaders who has been entrusted with the power to supervise or maybe to represent the majority. And they have turned that the chances they have been given, they use them on their own profit. The other guiding question, it might be, trace maybe the themes which may be found in the poem. Themes which may be found in every stanza. You can find more than one theme. So maybe just by saving time, as you can see, I can just name the themes which might be found. Themes which might be found in this poem, it is selfishness. You can see the uses of words like egoism. That's selfishness. They are egoists. They think much of themselves than the majority citizens or communities. The issue of selfishness has been presented as we are being told that they act slower than tropicism when it comes to national building, but faster than camera when filming. So you can see these people are very selfish. And the persona says nothing which is not theirs is of interest. The other theme, it is corruption. Throughout the book, you can see, especially on the last stanza and the 11th stanza, the persona asks, how can we achieve development while these people, while you who we have entrusted you with the power, are corrupt? And the other theme you can see, it is classes in the society. Classes in society, you can see there is a minority and majority. They have been put into two different classes, the ruler and the ruled class. Those who enjoy the national cake and those who don't. Those who share the lion's share of the national resources and those who are still starving. It can be seen in the poem in different stanzas. The other theme which can be found, it is exploitation. As in last stanza, the persona says, majority plead exploited, cheated, disregarded. But brother, how is development to come? And there is poor social services. You can see in the second stanza, the persona says, you have always been telling us water or what we need. It says health centers, more schools, clean water, better transport facilities, better living conditions. So all these they have been promised, but they have not been served with those things. As in the second stanza, the persona asks the man or the people that where are these things. And the other guiding question may be asked into this poem: what may one learn, or maybe what do we learn from the poem? What the lesson of the poem? The lesson of the poem, it is very direct that whenever there is egoism, corruption, exploitation, and poor leadership, then it is very difficult to achieve development. Like these sort of people, they be like pulling you back while you are struggling to move forward. And what is the poem of the poem? What is the form of the poem is another guiding question which may be asked, and the answer may be simply the type of the poem is open form poem, because number of verses in the stanzas, they are not alike, or maybe there is no uniform in the number of verses in stanzas. There is no uniform in the length of the verses, so there is no rhyme pattern. So you can see this is open form poem. The structure of the poem, comment on the structure of the poem. You shall look on the 12 stanzas, how many verses are there in every stanza. You can look. The first stanza has 6 verses, the second has 14 verses, the third has 2 verses, the fourth stanza has 10 verses, while the fifth stanza has 5 verses, the sixth stanza has 10 verses, and the seventh stanza has 5 verses, and the eighth stanza has 5 verses. And you can see the ninth stanza has 4 verses, the 10th has 5, and the 11th has 4 verses, while the last stanza have got 6 verses. Now, comment on the language or diction might be the other guiding question which may lead someone to understand the poem. And the language used here is very simple and understandable to any English speaker or user. The language used is simple, ordinary, clear, and straightforward. There is things like repetition, the issue of plead, I plead, do you plead? There is issues, maybe just this repetition have been put just for emphasis. You see, again there is barbarism. You see, barbarism may be found when there is a use of words of different language. For example, who since Uhuru have just managed to survive. The use of the old Uhuru instead of since independence. That's barbarism. And there is the issue of exaggeration. Maybe exaggeration have used it to magnify the idea. For example, exaggeration of the size of the stomach, the big like Rift Valley. That's exaggeration of fact. You can see thirst than that. Thirst than the Saharan desert. That's exaggeration. All these enters into the language used. There is the issue of imagery. The poem is full of pictures, so you can see that's all those mentioned things are found on the part of diction or language use. The other guiding question, it is a tone or voice. You can see the attitude of the poet. It is ionic and sympathetic, or maybe sometimes satirical. You can see like somebody is asking you questions and he's trying to be satirical. You can see he's just like mocking you, trying to provoke you, trying to see, can you maybe develop an understanding on the presented matters? So you can see attitude of the poet, it is ionic, sympathetical, and satirical. So the persona, the persona's tone and voice, it is ionic. Maybe you can simply say that. And the mood of the poet, it is the mood or the state of the mind of the poet, it is ionic again, serious and angry. You can see through the words which he's speaking. And rhyme scheme, if being asked about rhyme scheme, the poem has no rhyme scheme. does not have regular lines pattern. And the last maybe guiding question might be asked about the relevance of the poem. The poem is very relevant to our contemporary society, and I can say to our contemporary continent, Africa as whole. We have such kind of leaders, and I think some of Asian and some of American countries, they also have such kind of leaders. Thank you for being with me since the beginning of this video, and I hope you are subscribed. Until next time, I say bye bye.